Fellow cardboarders, welcome back. Today's deck will be another powerful one with Shirei Shizo's Caretaker, and here's another installment of Think Outside the Deck Box for you. Shirei is a 5-mana 2/2 spirit. It is printed as uncommon, starting out in Ultimate Masters, and what you get is whenever any of your creatures with power 1 or less dies, you can return it at the end of turn if Shirei is still on the battlefield. So the idea generally of this deck is to play as many low power creatures as possible with impactful effects. And I split this deck into different categories. We're starting out with a ramp pile, a removal pile, a card draw pile, a sack outlet pile, a protection and a recursion pile, as well as a sack synergy payoff pile and a land pile. And without further ado, let's look at the ramp pile. We're playing Soldevi Adnet. For 2 mana you get a 1/2 which has tap it and sack a black or artifact creature to add black equal to the amount of mana cost that you just sacked. So worst case, it just adds you 1 mana if you tap it and sack a small creature, but normally this adds you 2-3 mana, and with Shirei the creature just comes back, and normally they all have enters the battlefield or die effects, so you get a whole bunch of value out of sacking a creature. We're playing the classic Dark Ritual to add 3 mana. We're playing Bubbling Muck, which is the black version of a High Tide, so all your swamps produce a additional black when you tap it. We're playing Songs of the Damned, which gets us a whole bunch of black mana for just 1 black as an interrupt, as an instant. So the idea is we sack the whole board except for Shirei, and then add a whole bunch of black mana and cast some instant spells that we might need to play if we want to, or do that during our own turn to just ramp ahead quite far. Culling the Weak is another instant that you can just pay for 1, sack a creature and add 4 mana. Basal Thrall, most people will probably not know. For 2 mana it's a 1/2 from Fallen Empires, and the artwork is just very silly. You can tap and sack it to add 2 mana. We have Blood Pet, which does the same without tapping, so you can just sack it to add 1 mana. And the idea is throughout a whole table rotation you can add 1 mana during each of your opponent's turns and your turn as well. So you always have a mana open to maybe like protect your commander for just 1 at instant speed if need to. Gleaming Barrier is another creature that has 0 power, so that also counts. And when it dies it gets you a treasure. Similarly, the Ghast here could also count towards removal, since it can give -1/-1 to any of your opponent's creatures, or it can also create a treasure, either or. We have Mindstone, which can also draw us a card later on. You will see how we can do that multiple times throughout a game. Thought Vessel, if we have too many cards, we now have Infinite Hand Size, and Felmore Stone, which is another cheap ramp card. And always keep in mind, all the creatures you will see, most of them have power 1 or less. So for example, the Abyssal Gatekeeper is a very strong card in this deck, which I haven't played in any other decks yet, but in this one it's very powerful. For 2 mana it's a 1/1, and when it dies, every player has to sack a creature. So this is recurring creature removal. And throughout a whole turn rotation, this counts towards board wipe now, doesn't it? Because your creatures, you don't mind if you sack it to the Abyssal Gatekeeper, because they all come back. So I'm not playing any board wipes in this deck. You could add Crypt Rats, for example, which is a recurring board wipe that you might want to add to the deck, but I chose not to, since Shirei is only a 2/2, so if you would pay 2, he would die. So either you have an indestructible spell and then you can pump all your black mana in, and then it's good, but otherwise if you don't want to play that, it's only as good as like removing every 1/1, so I found this one much better. Fume Spitter puts a -1/-1 counter on a creature, and it can sack itself, which is even more beautiful. Perilous Mirror deals 2 damage to any target, so solid removal, either just dealing it to players or smaller creatures. Feed the Swarm to be able to deal with pesky enchantments. Spell Bomb to deal with graveyard recursion decks. And yes, this is a big weakness of the deck. If our opponents are able to remove our graveyard, we are quite doomed. But this also draws us a card when we sack it. We do have some ways, by the way, to deal with graveyard disruption from our opponents. We have some recursion cards, we'll see that in a moment. We also play a whole bunch of discard cards. This is also why I'm not too worried about our opponents dealing with our creatures, because they will not have a hand to deal with our creatures. So, Elvish Doomsayer, when it dies, everyone discards a card except for us. Burglar Rat does the same. When it enters, everyone discards a card except for us. Elder Fang Disciple, same here. When it enters, everyone discards except for us. Everyone discards except for us. When it enters, again, you get the idea. Mesmeric Fiend is another interesting one, because this one has a split effect here. So when it enters, we can look at an opponent's hand, exile a card, and then when it leaves, we give them the card back. The idea is we have the Fiend enter, and then in reaction to the trigger on the stack, we sack it. We give them the card back. We haven't exiled anything yet because this is on the stack now. And then this resolves, leaving a card in exile forever from our opponent's hands. And this is very strong and has been abused over the years, which is why Magic the Gathering now has the effect in one whole paragraph, like until it leaves the battlefield. So you cannot do these shenanigans anymore. But yeah, this deck can still do that. And we can now exile important cards from our opponent's hands and even see if they maybe have a counterspell, for example, that might be disruptive to our plans. Black Hat lets one opponent discard a card at random, which also sucks for them. And then Ashen Skin Zubera, which I really like because these Zuberas find homes in decks like these, which is a Pauper deck, so only commons except for the commander, which is an uncommon, as I said earlier. And you can always upgrade this deck if you want it to be more powerful. You can go from there and build it even stronger. And funnily enough, this deck can be built for around 30-35 bucks if you don't mind language or condition. So it's quite a nice budget deck and very strong. In my opinion, most precon and casual decks will have problems playing against this deck. Now, Ashen Skin Zubera, as I started, is a very fun card because it lets an opponent discard a card for each Zubera that has been put into the graveyard this turn. And the idea is you sack it at the beginning of a turn, and someone has to discard a card from their hand, and at the end of turn it enters again, and then why not just sack it just this moment again? So 2 Zuberas have died this turn and the opponent has to discard 2 cards, and this one will enter at the end of the next player's turn. This deck, by the way, plays around 40 creatures, 39 plus the commander, so 40 creatures. It's a creature heavy deck. As you might imagine, like, the commander wants you to play creatures, which is another beautiful and unique thing, playing a creature tribal deck in black. Novice Occultist and Dusk Legion Zealot, both of them have, when they die or enter, they draw you a card and you lose 1 life. Be careful if your opponent has like a board wipe. You might not mind, maybe you have a protection spell, but if you're really low on life, these could kill you. So, and that might have already happened. I play tested it like 4 or 5 times. I've won 3 times and once I lost because I was at 1 life and the Occultist killed me. So it was a little too greedy. Cut me a slack. Sky Scanner. For 3, you draw a card. It's a 1/1. Great for our deck. We can recur it. We draw a card every turn of our opponents as well if we have a sack outlet. Commander Sphere is another one of these artifacts next to the Mind Stone, which we might be able to play multiple times throughout the game to draw multiple cards, so keep that in mind. I will come back to that later. Let's put that to the side for a moment here. We have the Vicious Battle Rager and the Thorn of the Black Rose, which both add a little mini game here, a Monarch or a Initiative. Both of them can be in play, obviously, so these are really nice because most of the time we have like a Death Touch or so. Thorn of the Black Rose has Death Touch, or we have so many small creatures we will be able to get the crown back or the Initiative, or we sack them, they re-enter because they both have 1 power, and we just steal the crown and Initiative from them again. nasty. And we have several cards that let us sacrifice a creature or something else to draw cards. So most of the time we will sack the creature to draw 2 cards, not 3 with our commander. We have Corrupted Conviction, sack a creature, draw 2, sack a creature or artifact, draw 2. We have treasures, we have some rocks that we might want to sack. We have Deadly Dispute, which does the same, also creates a treasure. Eviscerators Insight has flashback as well, which is really nice, so we can play it twice. Village Rites, sack a creature, draw 2. Reckoner's Bargain gives us also life equal to the sacrificed permanent's mana value. We have Shred Memory as a Joker card, kind of, because we have 31 cards in this deck that this card can tutor for. Also, the Abyssal Gatekeeper is included, so which is a card that I really like to tutor up, but maybe we need some card draw or you name it. This can get pretty much everything that we need. Also, enchantment removal like Feed the Swarm is also a 2 mana card in this deck. So you name it, this is a very strong card and counts as a demonic tutor in Pauper. Lastly, we have the Troll, which allows us to swamp cycle or play it as a very big creature if we need to, but most of the time it will thin out our deck and can get us cards like Witch's Cottage, for example, to get something from another pile that we will come to later. This one allows us to put a creature back on top of our library. Next up, sack outlets. So these all allow us to sack creatures repeatedly. Sometimes they need some mana for it, but we're playing like 9 sack outlets, and some cards here you already saw that also allow us to sack creatures, so we have a whole bunch of these. Corpse Blockade I really like because you sack a creature and it gains Death Touch. Now you have a Death Touch blocker, it has 1 power, and whatever attacks us can be killed. If the wall dies, it just gets reanimated by Shirei again. We have a Viscera Seer, which is a classic card, which allows us to scry multiple cards every turn. Keep in mind opponent's turns as well, because creatures return at opponent's turns as well. Ashnod's Altar, gold border here, which I found quite pretty and is a strong card because it adds 2 mana for each creature that we sack, so it ramps us ahead quite a bit. So this could also go into the ramp pile. We have Bloodthrone Vampire, which grows bigger whenever we sack something, so keep that in mind. This can get scary quite fast. You sack 5 creatures, it becomes an 11/11, but if it dies, Shirei will not reanimate it because it had 11 power. So keep that in mind. You might want to keep it just to block or be sure that it doesn't die when you attack, but if it happens, you have 9 other sack outlets or 8 other sack outlets in this deck, including the other cards that also let you sack creatures. Carrion Feeder is another one of these, as well as Bloodflow Connoisseur and the Nantuko Husk, which all have their powers increase, and you have to keep in mind that this is a thing and Shirei cannot reanimate them as soon as they are bigger. I think the Husk is already a 2/2, so whatever. Thought Picker Witch is another removal card, so it can remove cards from the top of their library. So if they tutored up something with a Vampiric Tutor, you pay 1, sack a creature, look at 2 cards. This could also win you the game in the long term if you have too much mana out. But normally people give up before that happens. And the Ahriman, I don't know how it's pronounced, you can now draw cards. So this could also go into the card draw category whenever you pay 3 mana. Next up, Protection. We want to have our commander stick around. He's a 5 mana commander, so it's quite expensive. If he dies, we already have to pay 7 mana to get him out. So we want to have him stick around as long as possible. That's why we can give him Indestructible for just 1 mana, or we can warn him for just 1 mana. We will 99% of the time not make any creature bigger because we want to keep them small. Dark Privilege is a beautiful one, which is also a sack outlet. We can sack a creature to regenerate Shirei most of the time. Blessing of Leeches is another one that lets us for just 0 mana regenerate our creature, but we have to lose a life every turn. It even has Flash, which is very powerful and should not be underestimated. Whisper Silk Cloak is another staple, gives unblockability, which is not that important, but the Shroud is quite nice here. Keep in mind, you are not allowed to target him then again with any of the other recursion or protection cards as soon as he has Shroud. Another strong recursion card in Pauper, and generally in Commander, I'd say, for 5 mana with buyback. You have Disturbed Burial, which can just simply return a creature card back from your graveyard to your hand. If some of the bigger creatures, like this creature for example here, died and wouldn't have been recurred by Shirei because he has 2 power, you can return him back to the hand with cards like these, or sometimes, well, Shirei dies, we can return Shirei for 5 mana from our graveyard to our hand. Torture Existence, for just 1 mana, we can discard a creature card and get another creature card from our graveyard. Similar here, the Undertaker, another kind of Joker card. Now we can discard any card once each turn to return a creature card. Dutiful Attendant and the Cadaver Imp, both of them, when they enter or die, can return a creature card back from our graveyard to our hand. Then we have the Mirror Retriever, which is why I put Mind Stone and Commander Sphere here on the side. We also have the Workshop Assistant, which both have here, when they die, they return an artifact from the graveyard back to the hand. Now, both of them have power 1 or less. Power 1 in this case. Shirei will return them back to the battlefield, and we have a sacrificed Mind Stone or Commander Sphere back in our hand. Next time it's our turn, we can play them, sack those and get those back, and we can play them again next turn. So this is quite powerful. Keep this synergy in mind. These are recurring card drawers, which is not a thing that happens too often, right? In decks, especially in Pauper. We have more cheap recursion cards, which we most of the time will play on Shirei, but sometimes play on more important creatures if they are very important, or we have too many of these. All of these say when the creature dies, it gets back to the battlefield. It comes back to the battlefield. Some of them like boost, like 2+0. This one gives +1/+1 counter. This one also gives a +1/+1 counter. This one also gives +2/+0. This one gives +2/+0 and a treasure, and Chaos Ghost form allows us to enchant any creature I control and it returns back to the battlefield, even if it is exiled, so that's nice. Lastly, and I hope you enjoyed this video before we hit into the lands, the small but nice synergy pile. So we have Death Creator. Whenever any of our creatures die, or any other creature actually dies, we gain a life. And we have several creatures that will let us lose life, for example, the Zealot here, just to be sure that we can work against that, but also people will hit us with creatures, the creatures that they still have if they haven't sacrificed them yet. So we want to make sure that we stay in the positive, obviously. Serrated Scorpion is another one that drains everyone by 2. Cauldron Familia drains everyone by 1 and can be returned by sacrificing foods. We don't play any foods, but it's a 1/1, so Shirei will return it just at the end of turn. Grey Merchant can be a powerful game-winning card, especially when you pair it with some recursion because it has 2 power. But most of the time we have like 5 creatures, which is at least like 5 devotion plus 2. So that would be like 7 devotion on average, I'd say, to drain everyone by 7, gaining 21 life. And doing this 2 or 3 times, most of the time will just end the game. So this can be a game-ending creature. And keep in mind, you can always pair it with a card like Fume Spitter, for example, that you've seen earlier, which can give a -1/-1 counter permanently on the Grey Merchant. You sack the Grey Merchant after that, it has 1 power, and it returns, as well as the Fume Spitter. And now you have a recurring Grey Merchant every turn of each opponent, making sure that you kill everyone. Now lastly, let's look at some interesting lands here. We have the Witch's Cottage and the Mortuary Mire, which both, when they enter, get you a creature on top of your library. We have some cycling lands, because if we draw that many cards every table rotation, we might want to cycle some of these lands, so we're playing all 3 cycling lands that are legal in Pauper. We have the Bojuka Bog, which also counts towards removal, exiling a graveyard, and lastly a land that we can sack to draw a card later in the game. And then we're playing like 21 beautiful invasion swamps, which is actually the set I started the game with, which is such a nostalgic art for me. And now I want to hear from you which cards you would have liked to include in a Shirei deck. Did I forget anything? The deck list, as always, is in the description below with all my decks that I've shown on the channel. You can support this channel by clicking those 2 buttons, and I wish you a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.